Well, the world feels like it's going to absolute hell in a handbasket at the moment, but if you give me 5 minutes of your time, I will tell you a story that I think will perk your day up, because it's a story about a very, very good girl indeed. This is Judy, not this person. This lovely dog is Judy. Judy is possibly the bravest dog that has ever existed in all of history. She was the recipient of the Dickin Medal, a medal that was created in 1943 to recognise the bravery of animals in World War II. And if you want to go and look up the other recipients of that, I promise you it'll be a couple of hours well spent. But the story of Judy is by far and away the most extraordinary. Judy was a purebred pointer who was born in dog kennels in Shanghai. She was born sometime around 1936, so just as the tensions for World War II are getting going, and there was an English ship, a British ship, the HMS Nat, was stationed in Shanghai when they voted to get themselves a mascot dog. So Judy comes on board during peacetime, but pretty soon it all kicks off, and she actually proves herself very, very useful because she can hear the bombers coming before they're picked up on the radar and would bark to warn the crew. Now, the crew of the HMS Nat were eventually transferred to the HMS Grasshopper, and in February 1939, it was out at sea readying itself for a battle, and it got bombed. And the order was given to abandon ship, which everybody duly did. But there was a sort of a deserted island quite nearby, so those who were lucky enough to survive swam there. But Judy wasn't anywhere to be found. And they thought that she'd gone down with the ship. But one of the people on this island managed to swim back to what was left of the HMS Grasshopper to get supplies. And they found Judy floating on a box under below decks, and managed to bring her back to this desert island, where Judy once again proves herself incredibly useful because the soldiers that were marooned there didn't have any fresh water, but Judy managed to find a freshwater spring. She also barked to keep away crocodiles and predators, basically helped to keep these soldiers alive as they're trekking through the jungle trying to find help. The soldiers spend days trekking across the island, and by the time they get to the other side, where they just might about be rescued, the Japanese arrive and take everyone prisoner. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's it, end of the road, Judy. Japanese prisoner of war camps aren't renowned for taking on dogs, but you would be wrong. The soldiers snuck her in under a pile of sacks, and it was here that Judy met this man, Frank Williams, and they would stay together for the whole of Judy's life. Frank was a prisoner, and he really took to Judy. And somehow, Frank managed to convince the prison guards to let Judy stay, and she is to this day the only dog to have ever been registered as a prisoner of war. And she survived because Frank would share his very, very meagre rations of food with her. She would also sneak out from the camp in the daytime and bring back insects and small animals for Frank to eat. And this is how things stay until 1944. When everybody who was in the camp was to be transferred to Singapore. Now, dogs were definitely not allowed on board the ship that was doing the transferring, but Frank managed to train Judy to stay really, really still in a sack, which he slung over his back, and while they were stood on deck for hours in the heat, Judy stayed completely still the whole time and avoided detection again. But that ship was torpedoed as well, and as it was going down, Frank managed to push Judy out of the window, where she floated to the surface and actually helped soldiers in the water find bits of floating wood to help them not drown, but over 500 people did die. But it would have been even more, was it not, for our Judy? Frank had been recaptured, had no idea if Judy was all right, but she was. She'd been rescued by a guy called Les Searle, who coincidentally, well, unfortunately for him, he was recaptured and they were all sent to the same camp, and they were reunited with Judy. These men were put to work in Sumatra building a railway through the jungle, and Judy was there the whole time. And again, she proved really useful because she would bark when predators were nearby. She would bring them little scraps of food and kind of growl at the guards. She survived mostly by sleeping slightly outside of the camp so the guards couldn't get to her, but she never left Frank, not once. At the end of the war, the Japanese abandoned the camp, and eventually the men there were rescued and told they were going to be put on board the HMS Antenna to Liverpool, and Judy was smuggled on board yet again. But she was discovered, and the captain was furious. He was so angry, and he placed Judy in quarantine. Which wasn't good news for Frank because that wasn't free, and when he got back home, he found that he had to pay the sum of £18 to get Judy back, which he did not have. So he places an advert in the 1945 edition of the Tail Waggers magazine asking for donations, which was very swiftly raised, and Judy was released. And in 1946, Judy was awarded the Dickin Medal for exceptional acts of bravery in time of war. Frank would take Judy to visit the relatives of the people who hadn't survived the internment camp or the people that had suffered severe trauma in the war, and that really seemed to help them. In 1950, at the age of 14, Judy passed away. She was buried in an RAF jacket and with her medals. And if you want to read more about Judy's unbelievable story, this book is a really good place to start. And wasn't she a good girl? Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl, Judy? You're a good girl.